So it's Saturday morning. I'm out on the golf course. We're just taking a look around to see how things are progressing. We've got the water running on a syringe cycle, so we're checking on things to make sure that everything's running the way it's supposed to. We've got Amelia with me today. Amelia, say hello.
Hello.
What's the matter with the grass, Amelia?
Grass sick.
Yeah, we're gonna make it better?
Yeah.
All right, should we go?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go and take a look. Number 11 green. Pretty typical for what we're seeing this spring. Lots of healthy areas, with the exceptions of the areas where ice sat throughout the winter. This is pretty, a pretty typical amount of damage that we're seeing on each green. It's hard to say exactly what caused the damage in the spring this year because there were so many variables in the wintertime. We at first had that warm temperatures in December, where all of a sudden the temperatures dropped from like 18 degrees around late December into January, and we're down to minus 16 degrees. That's really hard on POA plants. And then we have 2 months of hard winter where there was 6-8 inches of ice. I don't remember if we were pulling the ice off this green. It was pretty bad. So the water gets trapped underneath that ice. That's where we're seeing some of the damage in the front. Water gets trapped underneath the thicker pieces of ice in the middle. Freezes again, thaws again. So really, there's it's pick your poison. This is one of the worst winters we've ever had. And it pretty much explains why we're seeing so much damage on the golf course. There's so many different ways for turf grass to have died this winter. Looking back on the fairway on number 11, the fairways look really good. This is a pretty good example of where you can see ice sitting in the low spots. Other than that, because the grass is so much longer on the fairways in the fall than it is on the greens, it's difficult for ice to build up because the grass blades are longer, draw heat, and cause the ice to melt. So what that meant is that there was less ice underneath the snow on the fairways than there was in the greens. Now obviously there was some because these low spots are quite browned out, but the higher spots on the fairway clearly have done quite well, and I think that extra layer of snow that we had on the fairways really insulated them from any poor weather that we had in the spring. So this nice slow melt and this dry spring that we're having is actually doing pretty good things for the fairways. So that's encouraging. I mean, that's a great big area that we don't have to worry about. These little areas are going to come back pretty quickly because there's not a whole lot of traffic on them. There's not a lot of foot traffic. There's not a lot of play. We mow them at a ½ inch, so there's not a lot of stress. So they should recover fairly quickly. We're going to put a verticut on some of them, and we're going to top dress some of these other areas, and maybe put a bit of seed in to help bring the grass back to the playing conditions that we experience in the summertime. And one of the things that we're doing is you can see we're syringing the greens periodically through the day to keep that seed wet. So one of the things that causes this problem is the POA grass. POA is not very winter hardy, so anytime the weather gets cold, the POA really struggles. One of the good things about POA is that it recovers very quickly in the spring because it seeds itself rather prolifically. So what we're in the process of doing in order to sort of beat the POA out a little bit is we bought some seed, and we've overseeded pretty much all of the greens. This is a good potential for us to raise our bentgrass population, which is much more winter hardy. And in a lot of these spots, the area, the grass that did survive the ice damage is the bentgrass. So we've incorporated some bentgrass seed into the greens, and we've done that by verticutting. You can see these lines through the green. And then we put our bentgrass seed over top, and then we top dressed over top of that. Now we're on number 6 green. This is one of the greens that we didn't tarp, and you can see that while it's not as green as the ones that we did tarp, there are sections that the ice has decimated as well. So the tarps didn't really do much to mitigate the ice damage. All they've really done is sped up the process of recovery for the greens that were covered. So as we get a little bit of heat and a little bit of light, which we haven't seen this year, these areas will start to come back at the same rate. We do have a couple of spare tarps, and we'll put those out when the weather gets a little poor to allow us to do that. Number 6 tee, you can see that the tees have also taken quite a beating. We verified the tees, top dressed them, overseeded them, and we've put some fertilizer on as well. We've been using foliars because the soil temperatures haven't been up enough for granular fertilizers to degrade and for the grass to uptake the nutrients. So we're seeing a lot of POA issues. These should come back fairly quickly because of course they're at a higher level of cup than the greens are. So similar to the fairways, they should come back at a reasonable rate. And again, it all comes down to temperature and light. That's what we need, and we just haven't been having those things. Number 6 fairway, you can see that's a pretty good example of where the ice has been sitting in the center of the fairway. And anywhere else where the water has run off through the winter, it's in pretty good shape. So that's a real positive. We don't have a lot of work to do on the fairways. They should recover quite nicely. You can see 13 greens having some problems as well. Again, at first glance, it looks pretty discouraging, particularly for May the 10th. But I'm going to walk down there and get really close to the green, and you can actually see that there is some growth coming up. Some of it's the seedlings that we put out, and some of it's the POA that's recovering. Okay, so down on the green, these areas look pretty poor. And of course a lot of that has to do with the lack of sunshine and precipitation that we've had in the fall of this year. It's just been a bad winter followed by an even worse spring. The temperatures really haven't been what we want them to be. I mean, I think we've had maybe 3-4 days that are above 16 degrees, which are just not conducive to grass recovering from the winter. But what is encouraging is if you get really close down to the green, you can see that there are portions of turf that are recovering. So a little bit of heat, a little bit of sun, and some fertilizer, which we're planning on putting out on Monday. Things should improve greatly. So we'll see how things go. 14 green. It's probably one of the better greens that we have on the course for this spring. You probably noticed that a lot of the tarps are off the greens right now and not pulled across, and the reason that we've done that is because tomorrow, which is Sunday, the temperatures are supposed to be quite warm, and we don't want to cook any grass underneath the tarps. So we're leaving them off, and then I think Monday, Tuesday, the temperatures are supposed to drop off again. We'll pull them back across. Now that eats up a lot of our labor because there's 14 greens on the course, but it's something that we have to do in order to get the greens back into shape for the upcoming opening date. So that's the type of stuff that we're working on these days.